Right now, Alibaba is fighting the US government in federal court. Same week, it launched a model built to beat OpenAI and Anthropic head-on. Same month, it's been quietly arming its own biggest domestic rival, the one that just barely beat this new model in a direct test. 3 fights, 1 company, all at once. Here's what's actually happening and why it matters more than another benchmark release. On Monday, Alibaba released its biggest AI model ever and aimed it directly at OpenAI and Anthropic. It's called Qwen 3.8 Max, 2.4 trillion parameters, multimodal, a million token context window. Alibaba's own blog ranks it second only to Anthropic's Fable 5, ahead of everything else on the market, including Moonshot AI's Kimi K3. Here's the claim that got the most attention. In one internal test, Qwen 3.8 Max spent 16 days building and refining a coding tool entirely on its own. Writing code, testing it, fixing errors, repeating the cycle without a human step in, before Alibaba called the result done. Worth being precise about how Alibaba arrived at its comparison numbers, because the methodology matters here. Alibaba tested Qwen 3.8 Max against Claude Opus 4.8, Claude Fable 5, and GPT 5.6 Sol using each rival's own coding harness, Claude Code for Anthropic's models, Codex for OpenAI's, and then reported the highest published score available for each competitor. That's Alibaba grading its own homework against the best number it could find for everyone else, not a neutral third party running the same test on all 4 models under identical conditions. An actual neutral source does exist, though, and it mostly backs Alibaba up. Arena.ai's independent front-end code leaderboard put Qwen 3.8 Max at 4th place with 1,668 points, trailing only Claude Opus 5 Max at 1,705 and Kimi K3 Max at 1,676, and essentially tied with Claude Opus 5 High at 1,669. On Vision Arena, it landed second, just 13 points behind Claude Fable 5. That's real, independently measured performance, not Alibaba's own number. Not everyone checking it hands-on is convinced it's as clean as the leaderboard suggests. One reviewer who actually ran the model summarized it bluntly. Qwen 3.8 Max is very good and very slow. Not confirmed, basically everything else. Context window, active parameter count, knowledge cutoff, benchmarks. Every benchmark number you'll see circulating for Qwen 3.8 is actually a Qwen 3.7 Max number. Now put actual numbers next to each other, because this is where the real picture shows up. On price, Qwen 3.8 Max reached general availability on August 3rd at $2 per million input tokens and $6 per million output, aggressive against Claude Fable 5's $10 and $50, and against GPT 5.6 Sol's $5 and $30. But set next to DeepSeek V4, which runs at $0.435 and $0.87, Qwen is actually the expensive option, roughly 4 to 7 times DeepSeek's rate. Alibaba priced this to undercut Silicon Valley, not to undercut its own countrymen. Alibaba shares jumped as much as 7% in Hong Kong trading on the announcement. Full weights go public the week of August 10th, open enough for any developer to download, inspect, and modify it themselves. None of this came out of nowhere either. Alibaba previewed this model roughly a month before launch, giving the AI community advance warning that another heavyweight release was coming. The launch itself wasn't the surprise. What's worth noticing is everything happening around it. Because this is the same Alibaba that days earlier was reported to be the company quietly supplying Moonshot AI, a direct competitor, with roughly 20,000 NVIDIA chips that helped train Kimi K3, a model that then turned around and beat Alibaba's own Qwen family on several benchmarks. Now Alibaba is releasing a new flagship explicitly built to beat Kimi K3 back, using much of the same underlying compute relationship. Alibaba isn't just competing with Silicon Valley, it's simultaneously arming and racing its own domestic rival in the same month. And there's a third front nobody in the coding benchmark coverage is mentioning. On June 8th, the Pentagon added Alibaba to its Section 1260H list of Chinese military companies, alongside Baidu, BYD, and more than 60 other firms, citing alleged military-civil fusion ties. Alibaba called the designation arbitrary and capricious and sued the Department of War in federal court in San Jose to get it removed. The listing doesn't trigger sanctions on its own, but it already bars the Pentagon from contracting with Alibaba directly, with a third-party procurement ban set to follow in June 2027. So sit with the actual position Alibaba is in right now. It's fighting a U.S. federal designation that brands it a national security risk, while simultaneously shipping a model explicitly designed to outperform the two flagship American labs closest to Washington, while also quietly fueling the Chinese rival that's already embarrassing its own AI division at home. That's not one story. That's three separate fights running at the same time, with the same company at the center of all of them. What's actually confirmed here? The model is real. It's shipping open weight in about a week, and the market reacted immediately. What's not independently confirmed, whether it actually beats Claude and GPT 5.6 Sol under neutral testing conditions, since Alibaba's own comparison method favored itself. And what's unresolved entirely, how a company fighting to get off a Pentagon blacklist plans to keep selling itself in the US as a safe, reliable AI infrastructure partner at the same time. That's where it stands. Let me know what you think.